Hi guys and gals, today we're gonna talk about mountain climbers, a great exercise for developing your core. It's gonna target your obliques, your rectus abdominis, it's gonna target your serratus as well, and also a lot of other muscles as well. We're not gonna go through everything, although I've got videos about the core exercises and I explain about the anatomy and physiology, but today we're just going to focus on the mistakes that people usually make, and mainly we're going to talk about 4 mistakes when it comes to mountain climbers. First, I'm just going to show you the exercise and then we're going to go through the details. Now, of course, there are a lot of variations that you can do the mountain climbers, but mainly this is the main variation that most people do. 4 main things that you should consider. First one, the knee. You should bring the knee up. As mentioned in that video, the core video that I'm gonna tag in this video as well, if you're watching from my YouTube channel, you get core activation, specifically the abdominal muscles activation, so the rectus abdominis and the obliques mainly, when the hip moves as well. So when you're just moving the leg, the hip is not moving and you're not gonna get the ab activated. If you want to use the ab muscles, you need to bring the knee higher so you can activate the ab more. And that's the reason that I like to go to the other side when I do the mountain climbers, because if you want to come straight up and down or forward and backward, it's not gonna target the ab that much because the hip is not moving. But when you go to the side, not you only use the ab muscles more, but you're gonna use the oblique muscles even at the same time as well. So the first mistake is people do not bring the knees too much up. Again, this is the mistake people do. You need to bring it higher. So see that tilt in your hip when you're doing the exercise. Second thing is, people bring the hip too much up. So when they're doing the exercise, they do something like this. Or even if they go to the side, the hip is too much up. First of all, a lot of people make this mistake because they just bring the leg up and down and not to the side. And that makes sense, because if you want to bring the hip down and bring the leg forward, you're gonna hit the ground. So it's not possible to bring the knee too much up and with a speed and not touch the ground if you do it explosively. So a lot of people do not have that flexibility, and because of that, they bring the hip up so they can perform the exercise better. But again, you should go to the side. The more you bring your hip up, the more you're gonna use your hip flexor muscles that we've talked about again in that video. The third mistake people make is going too fast. The faster you go, first of all, the risk of injury is gonna be higher, and specifically when it comes to the spine, you should really be careful about it. And aside from that, you're gonna activate the hip flexors muscle more. So you're not gonna get that much activation from the abs because the momentum is coming from the hip flexors. Remember, the first few degrees that you move the leg is gonna be done by the hip flexors, and then when the hip starts to rotate, then you're gonna use the ab muscles. So if you just do it fast from the beginning, you're gonna initiate with the hip flexors, and because it has a speed, the ab is not going to be that much activated. So try to slow it a little bit down. So instead of going fast, make sure you take your time. The fourth mistake people make is keeping their arms fully straight. When you don't have any bend in the elbow, you're gonna cause a lot of problems in your elbow and also your shoulder. The reason is because this exercise, although it's supposed to be done slowly, but still is a little bit explosive, and you're transferring a lot of force between your lower body and your upper body, and your body is bouncing around and the stability is getting challenged. So when you have your arms straight, all that pressure is just going to the shoulder and the elbow. But when you have it slightly bent, when there is a little bit of pressure on your shoulder or elbow, you might bend the elbow a little bit more, or the opposite. So you are gonna transfer that energy to the ground safely. It's not gonna be something explosive. The example that I can give you is like the brakes on a car. When you want to put a brake on a car, you don't just put your feet all the way to the ground. You put the brake slowly, because if you put the brake really hard, it's gonna be really bad.